In the background, we've quietly been following the debate from ABC News between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. There was an affidavit allegedly sent from a greater than 10-year employee of ABC News stating that ABC coordinated with the Kamala Harris campaign in order to rig the debate in her favor. Well, now it seems that the United States Congress wants to get involved. Let's talk about whether Disney is going to be called to Capitol Hill here on That Park Place. Well, I've been avoiding this story for more than a week because I didn't want to talk about it, but here we are. Whistleblower fiasco. The U.S. Senator has demanded Disney release all communications with the Kamala Harris campaign. Ooh. Right there. That is Dana Walden, the presumed heir apparent to Bob Iger at this moment. Could be Josh tomorrow, could be Dana Walden, could be based on how this goes down. The Walt Disney Company is facing more significant challenges to its position of unbiased news reporting. ABC News has been under significant pressure since it hosted the presidential debate earlier this month to reveal whether or not it facilitated an unfair advantage for one candidate over the other. By the way, the story from WDW Pro, you can check it out on That Park Place. If you want any of the details we won't be able to cover today. Part of this scrutiny comes from the fact that the Disney-owned network repeatedly interrupted or fact-checked one candidate more than a dozen times while never doing so to the other. Some would say that's because that one candidate didn't say anything that was untrue. What do you guys think about that?
I would say that's not true.
Fact check. Yeah.
We now have, I'm sure we're going to get into it, but we now have quotes from one of those moderators saying that, well, that was the plan all along, to fact check one over the other for distinct reasons.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me. While fact checking one candidate more than a dozen times, never doing so to the other, after an alleged whistleblower affidavit was teased online, Disney and its moderators of the debate began to corroborate many of the accusations. Stephen Battaglio of the LA Times reported Lindsay Davis, wearing pink glasses while speaking to the Times over breakfast at the Ritz-Carlton in Philadelphia, said the decision to attempt to correct the candidates was in response to the June 27th CNN debate between Trump and President Biden, whose poor performance led to his exit from the race. I almost called him former President Biden because I haven't seen much out of him lately. Once the whistleblower affidavit landed, Disney has failed thus far to directly acknowledge and or refute specific claims. The way in which the whistleblower allegations have landed are certainly not traditional, originally disseminated by a political activist online account called DocNet YouTube. The claims go on to assert that there are secret audio recordings which will corroborate the affidavit in the future. Allegedly, the affidavit has been sent unredacted to Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Dana Walden was confronted about this on the red carpet by the same guy who always gets himself on the right-hand side of the frame here. This is the same guy who says, this show from Marvel has been referred to as the gayest Marvel show ever. He asked 4 different actors in the show that same question. So I'm not mocking him. I'm just pointing out he actually asks hot button questions here. Let's look at Dana Walden's response.
Got to talk about Kamala Harris. Obviously, the far right has come after you, saying you're friends with her, so the debate was biased. What do you say to that?
I really don't want to dignify it with much of a response. I have the highest regard for everyone at ABC News. It's the most professional organization, the most top-notch journalists, and it doesn't really dignify much of a response.
Okay, so does anyone notice anything about her response to this that strikes out as, I'm going to say, unsatisfying?
It's a lie. She didn't say anything. There's plenty of things.
She pulled a Bob.
She did pull a Bob. She's never seemed more chief executive officer like to me than this moment.
Well, it's weird because she's probably coached up on this, but she looks up and to the side there as if she's like looking for a response, and then she can't think of it, and that's why she repeats the line again. It's very, very strange. So if that was her CEO showcase, not impressive.
I would say it's consistent with what we've seen, other than the fact that Bob Iger is much better at dismissing these things out of hand. He has a very affable personality when he's going after questions like this. He'll chuckle for a second. He's better at these kind of deflections because I think he's been confronted with them a lot more in his long career.
Well, he was a weatherman, so he's always challenged on his opinion about whether something's one thing or another. So, I mean, he's mostly wrong.
I would say so. Also, she doesn't actually deny the claim. I mean, listen to this 30 seconds again. She doesn't say that the claims are wrong.
Got to talk about Kamala Harris. Obviously, the far right has come after you.
Also, is it the far right or is it some accounts online? It's always the far right. It's never I've never heard anybody refer to the slight right in any way in online discourse, but to each their own.
Then you're friends with her, so the debate was biased. What do you say to that?
I really don't want to dignify it with much of a response. I have the highest regard for everyone at ABC News. It's the most professional organization, the most top-notch journalists, and it doesn't really dignify much of a response.
So, she does not really respond. She says that it is patently ridiculous. She doesn't use the word patently ridiculous. She says that it is not going to be dignified with a response. And eventually they did respond by saying ABC News followed the debate that both campaigns agreed on and which clearly state no topics or questions will be shared in advance with campaigns or candidates. There are, according to WDW Pro here, major problems with the statement. However, clearly the candidate who was interrupted in fact check more than a dozen times, Trump, was unaware Disney would treat one candidate in a totally different manner than the other regarding moderator insertions. Had that been known, it likely would have canceled the debate. Furthermore, a prior CNN debate, which largely shared the same rules with the ABC debate, was well known for having been agreed to feature no fact checking from moderators. It's certain that a campaign would never agree to be the only side fact checked by moderators. Now let's see if we can get to today's news. The UK Daily Mail is reporting that Congress has demanded that Disney turns over communications between itself and the Harris campaign. The outlet's Caitlin Carrell reported Congress is demanding that ABC News and Vice President Kamala Harris hand over any communications with the network and campaign team related to the debate earlier this month. Is this a big deal? Culture, you follow congressional hearings more closely probably than anyone else at this point. Will they be under oath if they're asked by Congress to respond to this issue?
Well, a lot of it's going to depend on the circumstances and from whom this is coming. Judicial committees and things like that usually have a little bit better level of authority and enforcement powers. But right now, I mean, the only way to get any leverage here would be to have the executive branch also behind this idea, and that certainly isn't going to happen because they're the party in power, and that's supposed to be the vice president there. But I fully expect that if they were to ask and demand people be there, they can issue subpoenas whether or not they are responded to. And again, you can get into a lot of trouble for not responding. You have to remember what happened with Steve Bannon and everything else that went around with that. So it's not like there isn't authority here. So I feel like somebody would have to show up if they were demanding this, but if they're just demanding communications from now, they can slow roll on this for as long as they want and hope that they get more support in the next government. But like I said, this could happen, and it would be interesting. I would love to see Disney held accountable for their shenanigans, and this is one of the only ways to get that ball rolling. Because the minute you start to misrepresent things, you start to build a legal case if you're under oath. So it could work out.
Yeah, no, I do agree with Culture. I mean, they're right now. I mean, if we're just sending strongly worded letters around, there's not really going to be any teeth to that. We really do need either a House Judiciary Committee or a Senate committee hearing on this with subpoena power behind it in order to get some real answers. And I will say, I mean, that affidavit, if you look it over, it does say, and I believe on page 3, it says right here that it was agreed upon with the Harris campaign, exclusive of the Trump campaign, that there would be fact checking actually going on. And that was, I believe, delivered to, I believe it was written out, the date on it is September 9th, just before the debate. And then Lindsay Davis goes on record saying that was the plan all along, and September 11th. It was the LA Times article when that was published. So there's something here, and it looks like this might be looked into, and it should be.
I don't think there's any way that they were all dumb enough to communicate these things on official channels in a way that can be traced back to them. I don't know. I think this should be looked into. It should be brought into the light of day. Apparently, I think they said that there were tapes that the whistleblower had, or some kind of like some more evidence that's going to come into play in the future.
Audio recordings.
I've lost all faith that the process is fair, or that the process actually cares about what's right and what's wrong. It's just about which party is in charge, and it's this two-party system that we have, and they all they look after their own, and that's it.
I'm going to point out here that you may be onto something there, because Donna Brazile is currently at ABC News, and there were some alleged leaks, never confirmed, but also never denied, despite a treasure trove of emails from Hillary Clinton that made it online, that documented Donna Brazile, who was, I believe, at NBC News at the time, coordinating with the Hillary Clinton campaign, basically feeding her the debate questions beforehand. I don't think that ended up changing public sentiment about that debate. This is, I hate to say we live in a society that it's not shocking to hear that there's some form of collusion between the news media and political parties here. Lorena, we haven't
at ABC as well.
Yeah, she is. Sorry, that's the thing that I forgot to say. Yes, she is currently at ABC. So she would know that you're not supposed to put these things in writing, and she would have learned that lesson, except at the time, in her defense, they directly confronted her. I forget which outlet did it, directly confronted Donna Brazile. And the deflection was, well, what we need to do is find out who is this source, possibly Russian, that is hacking into our systems, and all this stuff about the outrage that someone would hack someone, as opposed to talking about the fact that she got caught red-handed feeding questions to a political candidate. A master stroke, because she never once actually admitted to doing this, even though I would say she tacitly admitted to it. Lorena, I haven't gotten you to weigh in on this, and maybe you're being quiet because you don't want to talk about this, but do you have any thoughts on this?
It would be interesting if it got to the point where ABC is basically hauled in to explain themselves, but regardless, it's the silly season. And if people aren't expecting for all kinds of shenanigans to be happening, whether documented or undocumented, you have not been paying attention.
Yeah,
that's how I see it. It's with the last election that we saw, the kind of underhanded crap that's been going on. You have to know there's stuff happening. And especially, not to get political, but this is the observation. It was pretty obvious in this last debate that it was 3 against 1, with that one being Trump. Now, when you see that going on, you know whose interests are being served there. So it's pretty obvious that shows that they'll do anything, again, whether documented or whether they cover their tracks pretty well, that they do something like this. Will this sway people's opinion? I don't know. I really don't know if it will.
If nothing else, I mean, the reputation of ABC has been frayed here, and it was pretty clear going into this that there was a conflict of interest between Walden and Kamala Harris, and there was a chance that this could go off the rails pretty quickly, and obviously that relationship would be scrutinized amongst a host of other things, and yet that's exactly what happened, and now we're seeing the fallout from it, which I believe Pro predicted on his show right before the debate itself. So there you go.
Well, it's another thing to add, and I know people are like, oh, well, isn't ABC owned by Disney? Yes, but here's some history about Philadelphia. This was on Action News. Action News is the most watched news channel in the city of Philadelphia. I've been watching that channel since I was a darn kid. And you can actually see that same channel featured on the ABC show Abbott Elementary as well. Yes. Put the pieces together here with what's going on. It's a huge conflict of interest that they had this thing on ABC, but they have.
First of all, we've all wanted Disney on the record on some kind of issue here. The Gina Carano lawsuit comes to mind, where we're all kind of wanting their feet to be held to the fire on these issues of bias, specifically political bias within the company, saying that one kind of political opinion is okay within the company. Obviously, this speaks to the larger issue at Disney and media companies in general, where it almost seems like the media is completely captured as if it is a an extra arm from political parties here. And I'm not going to say which one, but whatever. There are some media companies that seem to be the arm of other political parties. I would love for these people to be under oath, so they have to be pinned down to only truthful statements here, things that are verifiable that they have to answer for, with people that, sometimes congressional hearings, not very satisfying because it's just a senator shouting down at somebody. But I would really love if we get somebody up there to really hold their feet to the fire.
It's going to sound like a lot of pleading the fifth, if you ask me.
Yep. Fair enough.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.